I'm sure you've seen what Dr. Manmohan Singh has written in his article today. And, there have been a recent study that's been released as well about inequality rising because of the pandemic, and especially in India. I just want to quote this particular extract to you of what Dr. Manmohan Singh says. He says the curative economic measures of government in response to the COVID-19 pandemic may have unintentionally caused one of the worst phases of economic disparity between the rich and the poor in most nations. How do you respond to that, Mr. Subramanian?
Firstly, Sunetra, I have actually, having played cricket myself, I always, have this belief that, even Shane Warne bowled bad deliveries. Just because he was Shane Warne did not mean that every delivery that he bowled was a wicket-taking delivery. So, and when I used to play cricket, I always used to play the ball rather than the bowler. And that is a principle that I've always adhered to in other areas as well. So I think we have to look at the strength of the economic argument rather than the person that is making that argument. On that, I would actually say the chapter that we have written, in the economic survey on inequality and growth, conflict or convergence, I think has a resounding answer to economic arguments like these. In the advanced economies, and some of these kind of commentaries are based on following of the conversations in advanced economies, but there is indeed a conflict between inequality and growth. In India, the survey very clearly shows that there is no conflict. If anything, there's a convergence in terms of the correlation.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you what you meant by that, because you say there is no contradiction between inequality and growth. Can you explain that much more, especially in the light of this criticism that Dr. Manmohan Singh and others have leveled?
As we show very clearly in the economic survey, if you take the advanced economies, you look at, for instance, health indicators, and I showed this in the presentation yesterday. If you go and check the YouTube video, you'll actually find this as well. Higher inequality leads to actually worse socioeconomic outcomes in the advanced economies. In contrast, an increase in per capita GDP, either leads to better socioeconomic outcomes or no correlation whatsoever. So there is this conflict there in terms of, inequality versus per capita GDP, which is a manifestation of growth, effectively. In contrast, if you look at in the Indian scenario, you see the same effect, which is that, whether it's, education, health outcomes, crime, mental health, all kinds of different indicators which have been covered in the survey. This kind of tension that you see in the advanced economies does not manifest in India. And the reason this chapter was written was precisely for, the questions like these, that yes, the COVID pandemic actually has the potential to exacerbate inequality. But given the stage of development that India is in, and here India is different from the advanced economies for two reasons. One, our potential growth rate is much higher, and as a result, we can expand the pie at a much faster pace. And secondly, the opportunity that we have for us to be able to lift people out of poverty, millions out of poverty, that opportunity is also significant. So our stage of development is different, and the survey therefore argues that given our stage of development, we should be focusing on growth, because it is growth that has actually lifted millions out of poverty. So if you see in the economic survey, about 85% of the reduction in poverty that has come from economic growth. Because if you grow the pie, the resources that you get out of that, you can actually use it for redistribution, and that is something that really helps. So the main point is that that economic policy must be driven by economic evidence, not based on opinions, and irrespective of whoever expresses that opinion.
Sure. So you're basically saying that if we focus on growth, there will be a trickle-down effect that will lift the poor out of poverty. Is that what you're saying? Just to clarify.
No, actually, no. I listen carefully to what I'm saying. I'm saying that when you expand the pie, the resources that you get, you can use that for redistribution. Trickle down basically means that that does not involve any redistribution. What I'm saying is the expansion of the pie gives you the resources to also do focused policies towards actually, improving and that is being seen. In fact, we've shown it as well. If you look at, and this is a very important point, and I think Dr. Manmohan Singh should take note of this. If you look at the bare necessities, which basically his government was able to deliver versus 2018 now, and this is using the NSSO survey, there's been significant improvement in those bare necessities in 2018 vis-a-vis 2012. So again, I would emphasize, I go by evidence and not by opinions, irrespective of who is making that.
Do you think that there could be other ideas as well in order to, what would you say of other kind of ideas in reducing inequality, for example, especially because, looking ahead to the budget, as in redistribution of taxes? What would you say to ideas like that?
I think, I've said it very clearly that, given that there is convergence between growth and inequality, given the state of given the state of development that we are in compared to advanced economies, we have to be careful. We just don't, read the Thomas Piketty's of the world, which actually, and they have good arguments to make for the advanced economies, but that we don't cut paste actually and implement stuff here. We have to actually use, our own thinking to actually argue what is right for us. And for us, at this stage of development, we should continue focusing on growth so that the pie expands, and that is used for lifting millions out of poverty. I think the evidence is very clear. Again, I will emphasize that let economic policy be driven by evidence and careful evidence, not opinions.